When did you realize you were going to go fishing?
Oh, that was a morning decision. It's either
That was a morning decision.
go play golf at the club or go fishing.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. On the 24th of December 2002, that's Christmas Eve 19 years ago, 27-year-old Lacey Peterson disappeared. She was 8.5 months pregnant with Scott Peterson's unborn son Connor. Connor was almost full term when Lacey was reported missing, not by Scott as some assumed, but by Lacey's stepfather, Ron Gransky. In this episode, we're going to talk about the latest developments in the resentencing, and we're also going to go to the original 911 call and talk about the opening stages of the Scott Peterson case, one of the most high-profile cases in America's true crime history. But before we get to that, a little bit about me. I'm a true crime author. I've written over 100 books on very sort of high-profile cases in America and other countries as well. I've written about O.J. Simpson, the JonBenet Ramsey case, Casey Anthony, and then I've also written a trilogy of books on the Scott Peterson case. And I'll put a link to that in the description. It's available on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and as well, the first book I think is available in paperback. So I have spent quite a lot of time researching, studying this case, often beyond the media narrative, beyond the courtroom narrative, beyond the narrative that most people who are familiar with this case perhaps are aware of. Before we get to this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started.
How can I help you?
Yes, my son-in-law called. He went playing golf this morning at 9:30. My daughter's been missing since this morning. She's 8 months pregnant. She took her dog for a walk in the park. The dog came home with just a leash on.
So the dog came back without your daughter?
Right.
Okay, what is your address, sister?
Well, I'm at...
Is that where she's...
No, it's over at Maloma Park is where she went for the walk. What is Scott Lake again? I can't remember.
What's your cell phone number, sir, in case you get disconnected?
It's 404. Jesus, I can't believe I'm going blank. 404.
Okay, so what's the address where she lives and she's missing from?
Her address is...
Over there between Encina and Icebrook Drive?
Yeah.
Okay, is that a house? What is your name?
My name is Ron. I'm her stepdad.
Okay, what is your name? Your last
Gransky.
Gransky?
Rantski. Her husband, Scott Peterson, is on his way over to the park to play.
What's your stepdaughter's name?
Scott Peterson?
No, your stepdaughter.
Lacey Peterson.
Lacey, P-T-E-R-S-O-N, right?
Peterson.
And she's white, black, Hispanic, Asian?
She's Portuguese and white.
How old is she?
She's 26.
What time did she leave the house and didn't come back?
That we don't know. We just got a call from our son-in-law. Said he left this morning at 9:30 to play golf. He just got home about a half hour ago. Nowhere around.
Okay, so she went to walk the dog where?
Walked it in that park, at the Maloma Park. What's that park over there with the call?
One down in Phoenix.
Yeah. Yes, it's one under Phoenix over there, by the tennis court. Okay.
That's on Encina?
Yeah, do you have a flashlight? Absolutely.
And she's 8 months pregnant, you said?
Pardon?
You said she's 8 months pregnant?
Yes, ma'am. Can you get a point card for me over there? Is that possible?
Is this over there at Dry Creek Park?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that over there at Dry Creek Park?
Yes, that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know. She's 8 months pregnant. There can't be that many people. She's got short black hair. She's about 5'1".
Hold on, she's 5'1"?
Yeah. Dark eyes.
Dark hair and eyes?
Yes.
So the dog came home without the leash, right?
The dog came home on the leash without her.
Okay, you're gonna, so her husband's looking for her right now. Are you gonna stay here at that?
I'll stay here if I have, yes. If I have to stay here,
We're gonna send an officer over there as soon as they're available. Okay, you're at right now.
Okay, good.
What's the phone number there, sir?
Okay, my house number is
No, where you're at. Is that where you live at Markley Way?
my house.
Okay.
My house.
What's your phone number? Mm-hmm. Okay, and her husband's name was?
Scott.
Scott Peterson. Do you know what he's wearing?
No, he just called me from the house. I have no idea. He's walking, he's going over there looking for him. He's not in false school.
Okay. What's her home phone number there?
Her house number,
Mhm.
it's
Okay, we'll have someone out there as soon as they're available.
let me give you the cell phone. He might have his cell phone with him.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll have someone out there as soon as they're available, Ron. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have someone out there as soon as they're available.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Now, clearly the conceit of this call was that Scott, first of all, didn't make it, and the questions the operator had for Ron, Ron couldn't answer because he wasn't with Lacey. Things like what she was wearing and when and where she went missing were questions that he couldn't answer, and these are actually still today critical questions. We certainly know today what she was wearing, but questions like when she actually went missing and where Lacey actually lost her life aren't 100% clear even today. Also, you can see how cleverly the spiel has been concocted by Scott to send searchers to the golf course, and of course he didn't play golf that morning, and then secondly to a park nearby the house, and of course she wasn't there either. And what was very unfortunate on this day that Lacey disappeared was there was a woman, I think she was also pregnant, but a woman who looked like Lacey was also walking a dog, and a lot of people even today still think that that was Lacey, and it was just kind of bad luck in terms of the early stages of the search. But the woman who was mistaken for Lacey did come forward, and it did seem quite clear, who it was. Now, in terms of Scott saying that he would rather go fishing because of the weather, just think about it. The weather's bad. It's almost worse going in bad weather, rainy weather, fishing on a boat at sea than playing golf. I mean, which one is worse? I don't think you would automatically go, well, the weather's bad, I'm not going to go play golf. I'm going to go fishing in the rain in a boat without an umbrella, without anything. With golf, some people do play golf in the rain. You seldom see people fishing in the rain. So it's quite interesting psychology there. On April 13th, 2003, bear in mind, Lacey went missing just before Christmas Day in 2002. So about 3.5 months passed, and then Lacey was just found lying in San Francisco Bay. A couple walking their dog found actually the well-preserved, mostly intact body of a late-term fetus in the marshy area of the San Francisco Bay shore, around about the Isabel Regional Shoreline Park north of Berkeley. That's north of the arena. The umbilical cord was still attached, which shows just how intact the fetus was. And it wasn't cut or clamped, it was torn, which is not the normal practice when baby is born naturally. And although the autopsy results were sealed, an anonymous press source from the Associated Press said that there was a 1.5 or 1.5 loops of nylon tape were found around the fetus's neck, and there was also a cut or a tear on the fetus's body, and one wonders how that took place. The nylon tape probably was just detritus, just sort of junk I think some people wanted to make more out of that than there really was. It is also possible that nylon was used, a kind of duct tape was used in the processing. But so a day after the fetus was found, a passerby found the body of a recently pregnant woman, and she was wearing beige pants and a maternity bra, and that washed up on the eastern rocky shoreline of the bay, a mile away from where the baby's body was found. Now, it's not well known, but as far as my research indicates, as far as I remember from doing the research, it was also a dog who alerted a walker to something that was in the sort of rocky area. So the baby was found in kind of a marshy area. This torso was found in a kind of a more rocky area. So when I wrote my trilogy of books on the Scott Peterson case, I tried to go beyond the court and media narrative to try to figure out when Lacey went missing. And, that's actually not really the right way of putting it. She didn't go missing. She was murdered, and she was made to disappear, and her disappearance covered up, right? And also wanted to know where she lost her life and how she lost her life, how that likely played out. And a lot of the narrative the narrative that everyone is used to is focused on what didn't happen and what wasn't true, and so little about what did probably happen, how it happened, and where it happened. And so that's where I try to focus my kind of investigation. Since writing those books, the Scott Peterson case has become intertextual in many other cases, most recently the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito cases, just in terms of especially the decomposition aspect. What those cases share with this one is the outdoor grave scenario, and in Brian Laundrie's case, a watery grave. If you compare the scenario of Brian Laundrie's remains, absolutely skeletonized, within kind of a month at most, to Lacey Peterson and the unborn child quite intact, given the amount of time that they were out there, right? In the water, sort of, you can say it's the water is providing protection, but actually you'd expect there to be even less protection from the elements in a scenario like that, where there are a lot of sea creatures. And I did do a study of the organic life forms in San Francisco Bay. I'm not going to go through that here, but you wouldn't really expect much to be left, certainly 3.5 months later. And the fact that something was left was due to the wrapping of the remains, which was obviously not the case with Brian Laundrie, but probably was to some extent the case with Gabby Petito. One thing that seemed very clear to me then and now was that Lacey was likely wrapped in a blue tarp with chicken wire and weighed down with 5 handmade concrete anchors, and that was something that probably took place in Scott Peterson's warehouse. It took sea animals 3.5 months to find their way inside, and obviously they didn't have complete access even when they were inside. There was just a little partial access here and there. And then it took a large thunderstorm dumping a deluge of stormwater to finally dislodge the remains from the muddy sea bottom in San Francisco Bay. And note that the fetus was dislodged first, so something held on to Lacey for longer. She was anchored in some way that the fetus wasn't. Obviously the fetus was in a way anchored, protected by Lacey, in a way that Lacey wasn't herself. And so when the storm did dislodge Lacey's remains, and I apologize for the graphic, I guess, but the torso that floated to the surface, that was as a result of the stormwater, and this would have affected the currents in the bay and just provided that extra push to allow this cargo to break free from the anchors. Experts at the time felt that the body had been dismembered before burial at sea. I haven't thought that is likely. I think if you haven't thought about the case very much, you might think that, and you might be confusing what happened there with Bob Durst and Morris Black and all that kind of thing. I think what happened here was something different. I've always remembered that Scott Peterson had cuts on his hand that I always thought were inflicted while rushing to cut and connect the chicken wire around the top and connect the anchors as well. I've seen on the Scott Peterson appeal a photograph of Scott Peterson's hand, and crucially, it's the underside of the hand. It's not the side where the actual cuts took place. The backside of his hand. The Peterson case is also an early example of the incredible work cadaver dogs can do at tracking remains, and I think they did work at the marina and in the neighborhood, and in this case both bodies were recovered ultimately by dogs. It may not be well known that this is also the case with Lacey, and these were dogs owned by civilians, so dogs kind of helped in the Scott Peterson case more than people I think realize. It also turned out no one knew Scott Peterson had bought the boat he used that day, and it only emerged later that he hadn't played golf, he'd gone fishing. And he was out the whole day. He was out for a day where the weather wasn't really good. I'm not saying he was out fishing all day, but he basically left early in the morning, said he was playing golf, and then he was back kind of in the evening and didn't have time apparently to call 911. That was left to Lacey's stepfather. And so moments ago, Scott Peterson was resentenced Wednesday, that's today, to life in prison without the possibility of parole for Lacey Peterson's death in 2002. Just shows you how long the legal process can be in a single case. And then a judge sentenced him as well, also today, to 15 years to life in prison for the death of the unborn baby Connor. And these sentences will run concurrently, according to the judge. I know that last year and for the past few months there was speculation of a new trial and of Scott Peterson actually becoming a free man again. That speculation's not completely outlandish. I don't think it would be justice if that happened. But the Scott Peterson case is an interesting example of a defendant denying his wrongdoing to the last, in stark contrast to Chris Watts' multiple but distorted confessions. I think in the Chris Watts case, they might as well throw away the key. In the Scott Peterson case, you sort of get the feeling they may need to keep that key because the case kind of isn't quite over yet, despite the developments of today. Scott Peterson's sister-in-law, Janie, has been campaigning tirelessly to have him retried, believing him to be innocent. As recently as August this year, Janie was in the media calling for a new trial. There's also been documentaries where Janie has participated, kind of just making the case for Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson is 49 years old. He's spent more than 15 years already on death row in California. His sentence was overturned last year by the state Supreme Court after it was determined that there was some problems with the jurors. There was a juror who personally disagreed with the death penalty, and she was dismissed. I think it was a she. In any event, some felt that if there was juror misconduct, and there was, that the entire case ought to be thrown out and retried. A case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Given that the physical evidence in this case amounted to a single brown hair in a needle-nosed pliers, again likely used to fasten chicken wire around the top, which was around Lacey, and given the fact that Amber Frey's shocking testimony wouldn't be nearly as shocking now, almost 2 decades later, I thought there was a real chance, if the case was heard, that there might be a different outcome. Today we found out that, certainly in terms of the sentencing, there wasn't much of a different outcome. The death penalty has been done away with, but the rest kind of remains. And I thought Sharon Rockers, Lacey's mother, summed it up best when she said in court, "No matter what happens, there are 2 things that will never change. Lacey and Connor will always be dead, and you will always be their murderer." According to Fox News, Lacey's mother did not get teary while giving her statement. Her voice remained steady as she declared Peterson both a coward and a murderer. I believe a judge will decide in February next year whether there is cause for the case to be reheard, for there to be a new trial, even though the sentence has been mostly kept in place in terms of right now. I believe justice and the true crime community need to be the same way as Lacey's mother, in terms of this steadiness, in terms of not getting teary, not getting emotional, even when it's someone so close to you. In terms of justice, one's got to be resolute, one's got to be unsentimental in the face of emotions, steady in the face of evidence, and firm in reaching a conviction and making sure that conviction stands. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.